What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Week 10 edition of Better Plays Ahead. My name is Sam Wagman. As I have been for the last couple weeks, I am acting as the host. And today I have a new face on with me, as both Frank and Matt are a little bit unavailable for this week's show. But no worries. I have our DFS expert and side betting expert for the game days NFL team, Jeff Hicks. And Jeff, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm busy. As you know, peek behind the curtain for everybody. Sam and I do a lot of stuff besides just, tweet X, whatever it's called nowadays. So like Thursdays are really like the start of the busy week for me when you add in NFL stuff. But beyond that, sun's shining. It's not freezing here in Illinois, so zero complaints. How about you, Sam?
I have no worries. I live in Florida, where in the winter, in the fall and winter time, all I have to deal with is whether it's too windy to go outside and play golf or
Oh
whatever other
boy.
sports I plan to do. So no complaints on my end down here. But we have an absolutely packed Week 10 NFL slate. Jeff and I are going to break it all down. You guys know how the show goes. And with that being said, we are going to hop right into our first segment, the chalkboard. And Jeff, I'm going to toss it right over to you, since you are the guest on today's show. And you have, it's not the most enlightening matchup in the world, but you picked the Packers and Steelers game to talk about. So why don't you break that down for us and why you think the Steelers is the right play there?
So I do the weekly best bet article as well too at the game day, and the first thing I did for my best bet was actually do the under on this game when it was at 38. It's fluctuated a little bit since there, but the more that the week's gone on, we've gotten our first injury reports. We're starting to get some news on Thursday, practice as well too, and even though it appears that the Packers are going to be healthier than we expected, early on this week, just a 3-point favorite at home for the Steelers. It makes a lot of sense. Neither team is going to, really put on a show. We've seen that Kenny Pickett and Jordan Love, they exist. They are quarterbacks, but they haven't exactly willed teams to win. They've done probably more bad than good. Um, and that's what it really comes down to, is that, and then who's playing at home and who's going to be able to slow down the opposing offense. You got the Steelers at home. You got a much better defense with Pittsburgh than Green Bay. And that's not to say that Green Bay's defense has been bad this year. I just think that with a healthy front four in Pittsburgh going against the Green Bay offensive line, I think that's really where a lot of that game is going to be won and lost for each side. So I think just getting the field goal at home just makes too much sense not to take that. And, we're not looking at 3.5. It hasn't really moved, which would be the only kind of, deterrent with is that there hasn't been any fluctuation. But I just think that the Steelers overall just are in a better situation to win that game when you're talking about, less than a one score outcome.
Yeah, I mean, for me, what I've seen the past few weeks is, whoever's going to be going against Green Bay has typically been a chalky play, unless we're talking about last week with the Rams, because they just can't score.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Love, as the Jordan Love we saw in the first few games of the season, where he was, overly efficient to the point that we thought he was going to be, a really good quarterback, he's gone. That Jordan Love is gone. He's been by the wayside for a while now. And to top it all off, you have TJ Watt coming to town. You have Cam Hayward coming to town now. The Green Bay offensive line has not been good. They rank in the bottom third in pass block win rate. So I'm worried about that. That's my chief worry, is how is Jordan Love going to be able to find Christian Watson downfield? How is he going to find Romeo Doubs downfield, even against the Pittsburgh defense that hasn't been great against wide receivers? I just don't know about this one. And I feel like the X factor is going to be Aaron Jones, what kind of
Mm-hmm.
explosive level we see him at. We obviously saw him look good last week, but it's still a little bit tempered. So I think that'll be interesting. I'm really looking at to see how much the Pittsburgh running game can damage the Green Bay defensive line. In this one, obviously, Green Bay's been a big run funnel over
Mm-hmm.
the past several weeks, much more than a pass funnel, though we should still expect to see a little bit of Deontay Johnson out there as well. But if I was taking a side, I would probably roll with Pittsburgh here as well, because you ain't catching me, getting anything with Green Bay that is, 3 points or less. It just,
Mm-hmm.
it's too too high risk.
Yeah, and just kind of you mentioned Deontay Johnson too. What's really important to remember too is that more than likely he would see Jay Alexander, who for the most part is considered what arguably top three like at worst at cornerback.
Mhm.
But this year the back injury is just it's been getting to him. He didn't practice on Wednesday. I know a lot of it's probably just more maintenance based, but you can tell that he's just not the same guy. And when
Yeah.
you don't have your best corner playing at his best, and you're going against, the chemistry that Pickett and Deontay Johnson have. It's been pretty. It's one of those duos that you just pencil it down every week that they're going to go between 7 and 10 targets, and you imagine he's going to get 5 catches most weeks. And now he
Yeah.
broke, the TD drought streak, last week and everything too. So there's some nice momentum at least for the passing game, even though it isn't a world beater.
Yeah, I do think that. But we're going to hop on over to my chalkboard play. And I chose probably the chalkiest play on the board. I took Detroit going on the road to SoFi Stadium, though I don't really consider any team going on the road to SoFi Stadium a true road game since the Chargers have no fans. But here's the play here is the Lions are just such a better team than the Chargers. And even on the road, 3 points feels like a little bit too little when you're talking about this Lions team that has just steamrolled over teams. They can throw it. David Montgomery's back. They can run it. They are just a much, much better team than the Chargers are. And we've seen the Chargers struggle through the air, even in the last couple of games. No Josh Palmer for the next 3 to 4 weeks at least. He's on IR. No Mike Williams for the rest of the season. He's on long-term IR. Quentin Johnston hasn't been that guy. You can only have so much Keenan Allen. And if you're not the Jets who just struggle to score, teams are going to be able to take advantage of that. They're going to bracket Keenan Allen in this game, I have to assume. And, unless he's going for 200 yards again, like he did in one of the first games of the season, he's just not going to be as effective in this game, in terms of what the final score is going to be. The Lions are just a much better team. They're getting 82% of the public bets, but they're getting nearly 97% of the money. So both the public and the sharps are on them.
Mm-hmm.
This is a good spot for a chalky play to come through for us. The Lions are considered one of the best teams in the NFC right now. The Chargers have been underwhelming, to say the very least,
Mm-hmm.
at this point. And I just don't really have any faith that they can go, take Detroit out, on the road here.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely more than fair. And then, Detroit's coming off a bye as well, too. You're giving them 2 weeks to prepare for Justin Herbert. Like, yeah, we see that Dan Campbell is more than competent. He's arguably a top 10 coach already, after, being given pretty much nothing for a roster, and outside of really Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler, there's not a whole lot to write home about. So even with, Detroit's secondary issues, the injuries have just been, an issue. You keep Keenan Allen in front of you. You keep Austin Eckler in front of you. You can find a way to stop those smaller chunk plays as opposed to having Mike Williams go over the top and stuff like that. So
Yep.
and David Montgomery's back too. So you're talking about another run funnel defense. You're gonna have 2 running backs, doing a lot of work. David Montgomery is going to be itching to go on top of that. So, he could be 15 for 70, and that could just be enough, for the running game for them, because we know that Los Angeles had such an issue running the ball, and they're just so one-dimensional right now.
Yeah, and now they're going to have to stop Jahmyr Gibbs, who has also shown that he can be just to do everything back for them. And now they have a real two-headed monster in
Mm-hmm.
this backfield that's going to be fully unleashed here. And I'm not even worried about the fact that it's a run funnel defense. That doesn't even factor for me. I'm thinking that Amon-Ra St. Brown is just going to crush them in the passing game as well, because they've been terrible defending the pass too.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see Detroit taking it from both sides here and just flanking them around both sides and just hitting them hard. And we could see a score being run up here. I wouldn't be shocked to see Detroit drop 40 points in this game, because
Absolutely.
I think their offense is uniquely suited to beat a team like the Chargers, and at the same time hold their offense down with pressure coming off the edge. Aiden Hutchinson, that group on the defensive line there, their pass rush win rate has been pretty solid as well. So I like that there. But I don't want to talk too much about our chalky games. I want to move right into our next segment, which we like to call It's a Trap. And if you need any reminder to what It's a Trap is, basically we go in and we find the flukiest line on the betting board that we can find. And we go ahead and we make an argument for the other side. And the game that I chose in this scenario is and I chose this almost specifically because you have the other side, and I want to hear you argue about it. Um, I took the Patriots upsetting the Colts, so I took the Colts -1.5 against the Patriots, and I chose that to be our trap line, which means I like the Patriots in this scenario. And basically, I'm looking at this like this is not a correct line. First of all, Patriots at home, Gillette Stadium in the wintertime. It's going to be
You got
cold
to
up
remember,
there.
this is Germany, buddy. We're going to Germany.
Oh, this is Germany for this game.
Yeah, so
Wow, I
so
didn't even realize that.
so
That doesn't
throw out
even
all
matter.
that stuff. Unfortunately, that's more of the issue. Is like how do you set a line for a game like that? Because even we saw it last week with Kansas City and Miami. Like, we don't know how teams travel. Everybody's different. But
Mhm.
go ahead. I mean, again, there's still the fact that the Patriots have a foothold in Europe does make a difference, though.
I do, yeah. I mean, the Germany line does make a little bit of a difference to me, but I think the Patriots are uniquely suited to upset the Colts in this game. Now, everyone talks about the Colts being a pass funnel defense, and they have been at times this season, but they've been much better against the pass in recent games. And where they've started to struggle is against the run more than anything.
Hmm.
And they have not looked good against the run in recent weeks. And now they get Ramondre Stevenson, who's coming off his best rushing game of the season, Ezekiel Elliott, who's been good in small doses. And now they get Bill Belichick, who this past week, a report came out and said the Patriots and Robert Kraft are reportedly ready to move on from Bill Belichick if he loses this game in Germany this week. And little alarm bells go off in my head when I see reports like that, especially when you're talking about a tenured coach like Belichick, who has been in the league for decades at this point. You know, I can't imagine that Kraft wouldn't let him leave on his own terms if he wanted to. And I really think this is going to light a fire under the Patriots and Mac Jones to come on out here and really beat a team that they should beat because let's be honest, the Colts are really not that much of a better team than the Patriots. Obviously, the 1.5 line kind of supports that, but I still think the Patriots should be favored at this game. And I think that they are uniquely suited to upset them. The Colts are getting 57% of the bets in this game, but they're only taking in 48% of the money. So there's a 10% discrepancy there, where the sharps are just barely on the side of the Patriots. And I kind of want to get your take from the other side of this as to why you think Indianapolis will take this game.
I think a lot of what I feel comes from just who's the personnel. Like, if I'm going to take my best players against your best players, how does that line up? And the way that the Colts are running the ball has been, it's different because we expected, Jonathan Taylor to come back and just dominate, but it's been two backs doing a very good job with him and Zach Moss. You look at receiving court, yeah, it's not great. Michael Pittman is probably more, of an elite number two than, like a number one for most teams. But Gardner Minshew is locked in on him. He also uses all of his tight ends that are out there. Like he doesn't necessarily have a favorite with that, which it's nice because you can pick on quarterback's tendencies. His tendency is just that he's not very good all the time, So I understand that issue, but they even go back to the secondary for the Patriots. They traded for J.C. Jackson. He didn't come with because there's some personal stuff going on. That is what it is. But then you lose Christian Gonzalez, who clearly made a huge difference for that secondary. That's the type of guy you can't replace even in the small sample that he had. So who's going to stop Michael Pittman? Who's going to, slow down, the bigger tight ends and stuff like that when you're having injury issues and when you don't necessarily have, the best win rate, when you're talking about, even going into mediocre offensive lines like what the Colts have and stuff like that. So I'm like, it's one of those lines where if it was 1.5, favoring the Patriots, like I get it. It's just it's one of those. It's a neutral site. We don't know exactly how things are going to play out because, of all the other, intangibles that you can't, account for. So at that point, just kind of like when I talked about the Steelers and Packers, who's going to win, based on their best skill players, especially. And that's just something that I just lean toward the Colts.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, in a case like this, I kind of go with you taking the personnel, and I lean towards who's the better coach. And in
Sure.
in this case scenario, Belichick stands out to me as the better coach. As good as Steichen has been, and I have a ton of respect for Steichen. Um, I don't know. Just feels like a spot where the Patriots should win this game. But we're going to move on to our main segment, the betting board. And obviously, the betting board is the meat of the show. We talk about every single bet that we like on the slate, or, more or less our favorite bets that we like from this slate. And we're going to hop right into it. And I'm going to let you go ahead and talk about your first spread bet, and that is the Texans and Bengals game. So go ahead and drop that for us.
So we just saw CJ Stroud, set a rookie record for passing yards. We saw him carry the Texans, even slightly shorthanded without Damian Pierce and whatever is left of Robert Woods and stuff. And with a defense that has not been very good, for large stretches of times. We just saw him tear up, Tampa Bay. Well, now he has to go to Cincinnati, who's playing, their hottest ball at this point. Their last month, it's been incrementally better every game. And one thing that the Bengals do very well is stop the quarterback. And not just stop the quarterback in terms of passing yards and efficiency, but they take the ball away. Cincinnati is averaging 1.38 interceptions per game. And so when you look at the bets, CJ Stroud over 0.5 interceptions was plus money on DraftKings. It could have changes at plus 114 last I looked. But when you're talking about a young quarterback, dealing with an improving defense, not a great defense, but improving, but a secondary that knows how to take advantage of those bad throws. It's one of those things that it's nice to get a plus bet on because there's plenty of quarterbacks we know that you can get minus 120 on them going over half an interception and stuff like that. And not only do they intercept the ball, but they've also had multiple interceptions in 3 games. And it's not just against a bunch of scrubs. Sure, they've done it against Josh Dobbs and whatever's left of Matthew Stafford, but Brock Purdy, who was not known for turning the ball over, they went to San Francisco and got 2 off of him. Geno Smith, who was very good with the ball last year, came to Cincinnati, threw 2 interceptions. So it's just one of those advantageous bets where they're going to give me plus money on it, and all it takes is one. I'm going to take CJ Stroud over a half interception.
Yeah, I actually like this because I wasn't really looking too much at the Texans to really succeed in this game. I'm sure we all love the Texans story. CJ
Mm-hmm.
Stroud is, I think he's got 19, or he's got something, and he's only got 1 interception. I feel like he's got
Yeah.
like 19 touchdowns at this point.
Yeah, it's an
Passing
insane
touchdown. It's
ratio.
he's by far, he should be in the MVP conversation, arguably. But I feel like it kind of comes crashing to a halt in this game because the Bengals are pissed off. They know that they started the season out, 0-3, struggling mightily. Joe Burrow, will he play? Won't he play? Is he going to be okay? And guess what? The Bengals have come right out and just dominated their last 3 games, 2 wins over the 49ers and Buffalo Bills, 2 Super Bowl contending teams right there. They've cemented their place right back amongst the AFC's elite, where
Mhm.
they should have been all along. And this line is exactly what I thought it was going to be, sitting at 6.5. And it's exactly the kind of line that says, take Cincinnati because this could be a blowout. Now, the only thing I'm keeping an eye on is the health of Jamar Chase and T. Higgins.
Mhm.
One practiced today, one didn't. But Chase only practiced in individual drills. He didn't practice in full practice. And Higgins didn't practice at all. He got hurt in practice yesterday. I would say it's probably about a 75% chance he misses this week. Chase, I'm a little less sure about. They've been throwing around this back injury since Sunday's game when he said he fell on it pretty hard and it got worse throughout the game. You don't really play around with backs that much. It wouldn't shock me to see them sit him for this game, knowing that he needs to be healthy for the stretch run and you can't risk anything happening to him. But even without them in this game, Cincy has enough firepower through Joe Mixon and Tyler Boyd, Trent Irwin, who looked good in spots last year, the tight end grouping for them, and obviously Joe Burrow to make this game, just enough out of reach for the Texans to where I could see them. And then on the defensive side, Lou Anarumo has been absolutely electric with his defensive coverages lately, especially in the last few weeks, like you said. Despite the fact that Stroud has only tossed one pick this year, I would probably be taking this as well at plus money. Plus money INTs, they come around a lot more often than you think. And I know plenty of people who will be taking advantage of this right alongside us there. So that is Jeff's 2 plays for the betting board. And we're going to hop back to another premium game that I love in 49ers versus Jacksonville here. And I'm going to start off with my spread bet here. And I went ahead and took the Jaguars +3 to upset the San Francisco 49ers here. And this one is kind of a doozy because I can understand people want to take the 49ers. They're coming off the bye, they're pissed off. Purdy's coming off his 3 worst games of his career. He's got something to prove. But hold on. The Jaguars are also coming off the bye, and the Jaguars have plenty to prove, and they've looked a lot better than the 49ers have in the past month here. And look, Trent Williams has been in and out of practice the last week. We haven't seen the practice reports today, but I know he didn't practice yesterday. So we're still up in the air whether we're going to see him. They will get Deebo Samuel back, but I'm not even too worried about that because the Jaguars are going to pressure the crap out of Brock Purdy in this game. They are one of the best pressure units in the NFL right now. They get pressure on the quarterback at a very league or above average rate, ranking 10th in the league in pass rush win rate. And they also really do well at stopping the run too, which gives them a huge leg up in stopping Christian McCaffrey. They rank 6th in run stop win rate this season against them. And honestly, they are one of the best defenses in the league when it comes to stopping the deep pass, which is exactly what the 49ers have excelled at. They ranked 1st in passing DVOA all season. But part of Brock Purdy's charm is that downfield passing. And that's a spot at which Jaguars have looked really good at. They have 5 interceptions with only 1 touchdown pass allowed on plays of over 20 plus yards this season. And they've allowed the 7th lowest completion rate on those passes. So I'm a little worried about San Francisco in this case. Can they get the ball downfield? And on the defensive side, what's going to stop Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk from putting up massive amounts of chunk yardage on this San Francisco passing defense that has allowed the 4th most passing yards per game over their last 3 games, nearly 275 passing yards per game here. And that's why I took Christian Kirk to go over 53.5 receiving yards in this game as well, because Christian Kirk balls out against man coverage. And while the 49ers only play about a league average amount of it, they rank 16th in man coverage rates. They don't play well against man coverage. They excel a lot more against zone. And I think Kirk is going to do a lot of damage against man coverage there. He's a lot quicker than any of the corners that the 49ers have to defend him. And I will look for him to really make Isaiah Oliver's life miserable in this game.
Yeah, I think the big issue is what are the corners going to do? Because obviously the big deal they made was getting Chase Young, and that's great. That's an excellent pickup. Injury, is a downside, but the upside, we know who he is and stuff. But unless he's guarding not Ayuk, but Ridley, Kirk and whoever else is going to be healthy, like it. That's the big issue. Sure, it can maybe cut down Trevor Lawrence's time to get rid of the ball. But, again, looking at your man versus zone stuff, if they decide to play zone, get a comfort level to start, well, that's Christian Kirk all day. It's just could be, the chunk yards, pass. And we've seen Travis Etienne I think play at probably a level a little bit higher than what even most of us expected coming into the year. So you're just talking, an extra, level. We have to be careful with the running back out of the backfield. Evan Ingram has been the perfect security blanket for Trevor Lawrence for a second straight year. He's been, right around, 7 to 10 yard A dot when he's catching the ball. And that's enough to keep your linebackers busy. It's enough to keep the safeties busy if they're dropping, down into the box or not. So it's a really good line. And I think if the books were to move off of it in favor of Jacksonville, even just like to make it, +2.5 Jacksonville, I think people would jump on that as well too. So I think what we're seeing with 3 for San Francisco is probably just worth what they're going to stay at, because I think if they were doing anything different, it would probably see a lot more money coming in then.
Yeah, absolutely. I really think that just Jacksonville is going to have such an advantage, being able to direct the pace of play to how they want to in this game. I'm not sure that San Francisco can really keep up with them on all facets. There are worries about San Francisco's run game as well. But I want to hop on over to Jacksonville's run game because you took a prop in this game as well. So let's talk about Trevor Lawrence's rushing yards in this game, which has been a really popular prop to take, over the last few weeks among the betting community. So talk about Trevor Lawrence's rushing prop here.
So yeah, I saw it earlier today at 16.5 as the line. It's respectable. So it's like, okay, let's look at the stats. Let's look, pressure rate when we're talking about with San Francisco and stuff. And then you add in again Chase Young. So Trevor Lawrence has gone over 16.5 rushing yards in 2 straight, 4 or 5, and 5 of 8 overall games this season. He was dealing with a little bit of injury stuff early in the season, which is when 2 of those games he didn't really run the ball at all. And if he did, he wasn't, he was barely touching 10 yards. And that's just one of those things. He gets the week off himself. And I do expect San Francisco to still get to him at some, successful level. It's not like they're just going to be completely stonewalled or anything like that. They still have an excellent front four. And one thing that we saw the last few games with Trevor Lawrence is his pocket presence was clearly, his confidence level was higher. So that way, when the pocket did break down, he was sensing it behind him and he had enough room in front of him. I obviously think that Fred Warner and if Dre Greenlaw is playing, those are 2 very good linebackers for San Francisco. But if you're talking 5 rush attempts, what's a little bit more than 3, plus yards per rush in that case? And if you're talking when they're in a negative game script, which they potentially could be as well too, then they're going to be looking to spread out the field. And then you're looking at a quarterback that has the ability to gain 10, 15 yards in a rush, and you can get there in 2 rushes. So it's just one of those numbers. It's low enough based on the production and what they've gotten out of him against similar and even better defenses.
Yeah, definitely. The main obstacle here is always going to be Fred Warner in this case because most time he's the QB spy. But other than that, I think this is a great bet here. I think there's definitely a chance that they want to open up the field a little bit here. They've seen other teams have success running the ball, with the quarterback on scramble drills against San Francisco. I know Joe Burrow did it a few times in their win. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. And Lawrence has shown pretty much zero limitations since he had that knee injury a few weeks ago. I mean, even in the game against New Orleans, right off the injury, he was scrambling all over the place. So I would not be worried about that at all. I would definitely take this over. I still actually might. We have one more pick before we get to our Thursday night football segment to close out the show. And I'm going to take it over to Seahawks at Commanders. And I took the Seahawks -6 in this game because look, this is a game where the Seahawks will need to say, okay, we just got blown out by who's possibly the best team in the NFL in the Ravens right now. We need to save some face. And we get a really good team to do it against in the Washington Commanders, who are in a rebuild. They just traded away their 2 best edge rushers. They allow everybody and anybody to throw all over them. And now you get a healthy DK Metcalf, a little bit of a banged up Tyler Lockett, and what hopefully is a pissed off Geno Smith, because this is a great place to kind of exert your will on the lowly Commanders and kind of start the road to reclaiming that top spot in the NFC West for the Seahawks. This line's moved up to 6.5 now. I still like it there. And basically, my whole thought here is that this is too reactionary of a line because the look ahead line here was 7.5 for the Seahawks, and it dropped all the way to 6 immediately. But I think the Seahawks are definitely a touchdown better than the Commanders. The Commanders struggle to score, at their very best. The Seahawks are a defense that has been really underrated at times this year because obviously they didn't have Devin Witherspoon for the first game of the season, in which the Rams absolutely shredded them. But now they get to a point where Witherspoon has been playing really well. Tariq Woolen has still been playing really well. They just added Leonard Williams to the defensive line unit. He's going to be a huge help in stopping the run there. Their run game was already good, or their run stop was already good. Let's just toss that 300-yard game from Baltimore out of our mind. I'm just completely tossing that game out of my mind because I knew that was going to be a game that Baltimore was going to be able to take advantage of. Seattle uniquely set up to beat them. But, because the NFL is a game of any given week. So I really think that this is a great spot for Seattle. Washington plays a ton of man coverage. They rank 8th in the league in, percentage of man coverage plays. And against that coverage, you see DK Metcalf with a 35% target share, plays really well against that. Obviously, the man is 6'4". He weighs like 240 pounds. He's just jacked and can beat any press man coverage at all. And I think that DK Metcalf is really going to have a good game here. Lockett's a bit banged up, but in comes Jackson Smith-Njigba, who's looked good as well in this case. They've really kind of ramped up his production a lot over the past few weeks. I'm kind of really hopeful that he shows out in this scenario. And I'm not really sure that Washington is going to be able to score against Seattle that much. Jahan Dotson is nicked up. Curtis Samuel is nicked up. Terry McLaurin has been just about average. And guess what? Seattle, who runs the second most zone coverage in the NFL this season, McLaurin sucks against zone. He has been the third best receiver on the Washington Commanders this season against zone coverage. He has the third lowest target share. Curtis Samuel has almost outscored him in PPR points in this game. Jamison Crowder is out targeting him in zone coverage. That's how bad the situation is. And let's put it this way. Seattle is going to get pressure on Sam Howell, and Sam Howell has taken the most sacks in the league by far. The pass block win rate is not great for Washington. Meanwhile, Seattle ranks 9th in pass rush win rate. So I definitely think this is a get right game for the Seahawks, and they should be in a great spot here.
Yeah, I agreed. Even at the beginning of the week, when we're doing our betting stuff at the game day, it was an auto click for me on Seattle, and that's not to even discount what people like Sam Howell have been doing. Because again, the fact that he's not a big pile of mush is a minor miracle with the amount of hits he's taking. Dude's a gamer. Multiple 300-yard games. He's flirted with 400 yards multiple times. But yeah, there's just no help and stuff like that. And then when you finally get access to Jahan Dotson, he gets hurt. Curtis Samuel's hurt, which, it's another day that ends in a Y and stuff like that. And just the defense, if there's ever a secondary that should be playing man, it's that one. It's just been that simple all year, but it is what it is. You got to take what you get, which is nice, in this case, if you're, favoring Seattle. And one thing just with even Lockett and JSN, two of the best route runners in the NFL. That against man coverage is enough. Even if Tyler Lockett is just 5 for 30 on the game, he's going to get open even if he's asked to do a lot less, and give Smith-Njigba a little bit more room to work with as well too. So it should be a nice bounce back game for Seattle after having to abandon their game script almost instantly in Baltimore last week.
Absolutely. And there are a ton more games that we could talk about here, but we have to go and get ready to watch what should be one of the most riveting Thursday night football games of the season here. Bears versus Panthers. And we have 5 different bets that we picked for this game for you. And I will early disclaimer. If you watch this game tonight, you may be entitled to compensation later, not by us, but from someone else. But we're going to start off with one of your favorite bets, and you took Cole Kmet's receiving yards prop. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so just so you know, this actually is a very big game for Chicago, because if they win, it puts them that much closer to the top pick, and if they lose, then the ball can bounce a totally different way to where they can go from having potentially two top five picks to not having any, because like you said, any given Sunday. But Cole Kmet, we're getting him at 35 and a half receiving yards for tonight. It moved up a total yard already from this morning. It was at 34 and a half when I first locked it in. You can still get it for around 120. And stuff like that. But it's a great number. He's hit this number 6 times in 9 games for the Bears. 2 of the times that he didn't included the game where Justin Fields dislocated his thumb, and then the first game with Tyson Bagent at quarterback. But you know what? That happens. But since then, we're talking major performances here. 2 touchdowns last week, including just a very good pass from Bagent to Kmet over the shoulder in the end zone. During one of Justin Fields' 4 touchdown games, Kmet put up a big number as well too. And I think what makes a big difference too is that the Bears are purposely going to use him. If you were to look at how Carolina's handled tight ends, it's been pretty good. Last week they got beat up a little bit by them, but then like I say, oh well, they stopped T.J. Hawkinson when Minnesota came to town. He was held to 224 and no scores. Well, Minnesota had no interest in passing the ball that game because they wanted to take advantage of Justin Jefferson, which is what you do, and then also give their running back some work too, because they wanted to beat up a defense that was very susceptible to the run at the time. So, in terms of game script, the Bears can easily run the ball. They're favorites. You'd expect a Deontay Foreman type of game. But when you're looking at who Tyson Bagent has had the most success with since being the starter over the last 3 weeks, it's been Cole Kmet. And if you're going to give me 35 and a half yards, I want to take that because that's a number that he can get, especially when he's hit double-digit targets once in his 3 starts and has flirted with it 2 other times.
Yeah, I like this because, Kmet has shown to be one of the top targets for Bajan, other than that 0 target performance in his first start against the Raiders a few weeks back. I'm not really too worried about it. And, this is one of the few Bears lines I want to take tonight. Foreman's rushing yards are too high for me. DJ Moore, it's a revenge game, but you never know what he's going to do. Down the field, he missed, just barely last week. Kmet feels like a nice target, to go alongside the main guys there. I'm going to go on the other side for my first pick and take Chuba Hubbard to rush for under 43 and a half yards. Now, this line has, gone down since I took it. It's now at 42 and a half on most of the sites at this point, but I still think there's a little bit of value in it. There are signs that it's going to keep dropping as we get closer to game time. I'm not really sure why. There were, some reports of wins in Chicago beforehand. And, but I'm not really sure they're going to affect the game too much. People have said it would be windy for most of the day in Chicago and it'll kind of dissipate, towards game time. So the worry about, people thinking there would be more running and less passing, that should be gone. So I'm not really sure why it's dropping at this point. But, I basically took this because last week Frank Reich came out and said, we're giving the ball to Chuba Hubbard way too much. We want to kind of split it out a little bit more, give Miles Sanders a little bit more of a chance to get some touches after he missed a few games with injuries and was pretty inefficient otherwise. So if you were still believing in Miles Sanders after they gave him $6 million a year, look, now's your time to hop back in on the train because they might give him the rock a few more times. But my main cap on this is this. The Bears are allowing the fewest rushing yards per game over their last 3 games in the entire NFL. They're allowing 60 rushing yards per game to running backs. And that's just a very low number. They've become a pure pass funnel type of offense. And in games where Carolina falls behind early, they just throw. You'll see with one of my later props why I targeted this and kind of, tangentially found a prop that's pretty similar correlation wise. But Carolina doesn't want to have to run the football if they don't have to, because their offensive line, not that great. They don't really do all that well in stopping or getting pass blocking going well, and they're just not going to have too much opportunity to get Chuba Hubbard going unless they jump out to a lead in this game. And I could see this game being a real slugfest back and forth. And I could definitely see Miles Sanders taking a little bit more of the touches in this game away. So I took Chuba Hubbard, who we have projected for about 36 yards, and I took his under 43.5 rushing yards here.
Yeah, I dig it. And it's funny, like that the Bears are so good at stopping the run because they run essentially a version of the Tampa 2 defense. It's the Lovey 2 because Matt Eberflus comes from that long line of tree,
Mhm.
in terms of defensive scheming. And they don't have a 3 technique. They drafted 2 guys that never played the 3 technique before. And it depends on having that anchor in the middle of the line and stuff like that. They don't have one, and they're still making this work that way. And that's including Yannick Ngakoue playing more rundowns than ever in his career too. Like it's so weird that it's working out that way. But
Yeah.
yeah, getting it at 43.5 was really good.
Will be interesting to see how much Montez Sweat plays in this game as well. There, in terms of rush stopping and just pass rushing in
Mhm.
general for the Bears. But in talking about the Bears defense, you took one of my former favorite players, former Eagle, TJ Edwards, his tackles and assist number. So break that down for us because I don't know anything, about IDP guys. I stay away from tackle props. My favorite guy, Ryan Noonan, who I know from
Noonan.
4for4, is a huge tackle props guy, but I am not. So tell us all about this tackle prop that you got.
Yeah, I took this number in large part because Tremaine Edmonds is out. He hasn't obviously been, earning his paycheck, so to speak, with the Bears this year. Just has not been like the game changing linebacker that you would expect. But in the 2 games that Edmonds has missed or has missed part of, TJ Edwards has hit double digit tackles plus assists. It's been his linebacking core. They tend to only play 2. And the other one has been Jack Sanborn, who you don't want out there on passing downs. So you're talking about, one linebacker that's expected to do majority of the work, in the middle of the field. Jack Sanborn is being forced to play, and he's also hit like 10 tackles, between solo and assists per game as well, too. But it's just one of those that Edwards is a tackling machine. He was that way, especially last year when, he got his shine deservedly for being so good down especially covering tight ends and stuff too. And that's one thing you're going to see Carolina have to use today with so many wide receiver injuries is probably use some combination of Tommy Tremble and Hayden Hurst potentially at the same time. They're 2 totally different guys too. So you're going to be asking Everett to do probably 2 different types of coverage for both those guys, which means that he's going to be in and around the ball a lot. And that's something we've seen a lot more the last couple of weeks. And it's just one of those numbers. It was at minus 140 when I got it. And if you are someone on DraftKings where you can get a lot of the tackle props and stuff like that, you can get a 50% profit boost, and that can get you right back into a lot more favorable territory for odds if you want to do something like that with the 8.5 here for Edwards.
And we definitely have a promo code for that over at the game day, right?
We have a promo that we use here. That's kind of what I do here. If you are a new user to DraftKings, if you bet $5, you get $200 in bonus bets, whether your first bet win or lose. It has to be a $5 bet, but again, a smaller amount of risk is attached to it, and win or lose, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets that you can break up into smaller bonus bets to use over multiple wagers as well too. It's one of the few offers where you can actually get in and not have to worry about an outcome of a wager to actually get a nice boost to your bankroll to begin with. So it's a good one
Awesome.
to use, and there's no promo code to use right now with DraftKings.
Awesome. We're going to go back to this game as well, and we have a few more props to break down. I'm going to go to my favorite Bryce Young player prop in this game, and it's one that I've gone back to the well quite a few times at this point. It's Bryce Young to go over 32.5 passing attempts. Now, I missed the boat at 31.5, which is the number that I really wanted to get, but it switched up on me before I had a chance to get it. But the good news is that this is a game which should end up well for Bryce Young passing the ball. And that's despite the fact that this should be a low scoring game because the Bears are obviously favored in this game for a reason. The books think they're going to win this game. And in games where the Bears have been ahead, their opponents have had to throw the ball 41 and 51 times in their 2 wins this season. So I'm really looking at Bryce Young to kind of just be put in a position where he had to throw the ball. I'm not ruling out a scenario like last week against the Colts where he only had 6 attempts through the first quarter. And then because of the fact he threw two bad picks back to back, he had to throw from that point on out, and he finished the game with over 40 passing attempts. And now we kind of get, a similar scenario here. Bryce hasn't looked all that great lately. I could see him, possibly doing something boneheaded to put the team behind right out of the gate. And the fact that the Bears are a pass funnel lately, as I've said, has definitely helped. Bryce is over this number in 5 of 7 games this season. And I do think that this game provides a great scenario for Bryce Young to go over his passing yards, despite the fact that DJ Chark is out.
He should have 10 targets just with Adam Thielen alone. The Bears slot corner, Kyler Gordon, he's not bad, second-year guy, but he's boom or bust. It's either he will shut you down for quarters at a time, or he's the guy you pick on for them out of their cornerback group. Especially if you're looking with your best receiver, like there should be no reason why Adam Thielen isn't getting double-digit targets, especially when you're talking about Bryce Young probably having to throw.
Yep. But let's wrap this up with a great prop to take it down. And it's a kicker prop because kickers are people too. They deserve to get bet on just as much as everybody else, if just a little less so. But you took Eddie Pinheiro player prop for him. So why don't you end us out with that?
Yeah, I think this is one of those ones where just the books are looking at a bad team playing against a bad team. So, if they're not, scoring touchdowns, they're just, kicking the ball back to each other. But I think 5.5 points is really good for Eddie Pinheiro because we've mentioned, this entire segment, you can pass on the Bears. You can get the ball. They have a lot of bend but don't break drives. Then you're in position to kick a field goal. What has Eddie Pinheiro done? He's played for the Bears. He understands, even if he wasn't that good when he was with them, how to kick in that stadium. So, it doesn't have to be some, 35-31 game for this number to hit. It could essentially be a 10-6 final, and he could get, all 6 points for the Panthers and stuff like that. But I think it's just one of those situations where the Panthers can move the ball enough and stall out enough to where Pinheiro can get multiple attempts. And the Panthers are averaging 2 attempts per game. So he can just get that alone on field goals without even a touchdown being put on the board. So just fingers crossed that he gets to that before the fourth quarter if it's in like a 10-point game, so that they're not going for 2 and you're sweating out like an extra point.
There we go. And that's such a great way to end this show with a kicker prop there. But I want to thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Jeff, for hopping on with me this great day. Remember, guys, go on and check out the Game Day NFL. We have all kinds of great fantasy and sports betting advice for you over at thegameday.com. You can find myself over there. You can find Jeff over there. You can find our regular host, Frank Ammirante, and Matt Williams over there. Tons of stuff going on over there. Make sure you go on, check out this podcast over at TGD Action on the TGD Action YouTube channel. Check out the Caps Off podcast, Hard in the Paint, the Hot Corner, all of that great stuff. But from us here at the Game Day, I want to thank you again for tuning into this episode of Better Plays Ahead, and we will see you next Thursday afternoon as always.